It was late on the evening of May 31st, 1995, when a young woman walked into one of Norway's most expensive hotels. Standing over the city of Oslo was the famous Oslo Plaza Hotel, a luxury hotel known for hosting diplomats, wealthy travelers, and international guests. It was the kind of place where people came when they wanted to be seen. But that night, one guest checked in who, as far as anyone can tell, never actually existed. She walked up to the front desk alone and calmly checked in under the name Jennifer Fairgate, though some records later spell it Jennifer Fairgate. She said she was from Belgium and gave an address in the town of Verlaine. There was just one issue. The address she gave wasn't real. She also registered a second guest under the name Louise Fairgate. Here's the weird part. No one ever reported seeing this second person. At the time, none of this really raised any alarms. Back in 1995, luxury hotels often didn't require ID at check-ins, especially if you were paying cash. And Jennifer, she paid entirely in cash. Because apparently, fake address, mysterious companion, and no identification was just the deluxe hotel package in 1995. The receptionist handed her the key to room 2805. No one had any idea what was about to happen next. Over the next 3 days, hotel staff started noticing some strange things about their mysterious guest. Jennifer barely left the room. Housekeeping came in several times and noticed the bed hardly looked slept in, almost like someone had only sat on it instead of actually spending the night there. The curtain stayed closed almost the entire time. The minibar had barely been touched. A few sodas, a bag of chips, that was pretty much it. And for someone staying in one of Oslo's nicest hotels, she didn't act like a tourist. It almost felt like she was waiting. Waiting for what? No one knows. But what stood out even more was what wasn't in the room. There were almost no personal belongings. No purse, no passport, no makeup, toiletries, hairbrush, no luggage tags, no plane tickets, nothing. It was almost like whoever was staying there had intentionally removed anything that could be identifying who she really was. Just a woman with no identification, no luggage, no verifiable address, and an invisible roommate. Totally normal hotel activity, nothing to see here. And that was only the beginning. By June 3rd, hotel staff realized Jennifer had overstayed her reservation and hadn't arranged payment for another night. So a security guard was sent up to her room. He knocked on the door, and almost immediately, a gunshot went off inside. The guard froze. But instead of forcing the door open or locking down the hallway, he walked away. Yeah, because that makes sense. You hear a gunshot from behind a hotel room door, and your next move is apparently to take a casual 15-minute intermission. And I know I should say this. It was the 90s. It wasn't like he could necessarily call for help, but... So for roughly 15 minutes, room 2805 was left completely unattended. Nobody watched the exits. Nobody secured the stairwell. Nobody knew what was happening inside. Why secure a possible crime scene when you can simply leave it unsupervised and hoped the situation potentially resolves itself. And later, that 15-minute gap would become one of the most controversial parts of the entire case. Because during that time, someone could have left. When security finally entered the room, they found Jennifer dead on the bed. She had been shot in the forehead. A Browning 9mm pistol rested in one of her hands. The door was locked from the inside with no obvious signs of forced entry. So investigators quickly leaned towards the simplest answer: suicide. Case closed. That was fast. Nothing says thorough investigation like choosing an answer before the evidence has finished entering the room. Except the evidence didn't line up at all. When forensic investigators started examining the scene, things got weird fast. Jennifer's hands had no gunshot residue. And if she had fired the weapon herself, there should have been residue. But there wasn't. And even stranger, there was no blood splatter on the hand holding the gun. Medical experts pointed out, with a close contact gunshot wound, blood transfer onto the shooter's hand would normally be expected. Again, nothing. So the gun says suicide, but the hand holding it apparently missed the memo. Then investigators looked at the gun itself. The Browning pistol had its serial number deliberately removed using acid. Someone had intentionally made the weapon impossible to trace. And nearby, police found extra ammunition. A lot of it. Way more than someone would realistically need if the goal was simply suicide. Which raises a pretty obvious question. Why bring an illegal, untraceable gun into a luxury hotel just to kill yourself? Evidence showed that 2 shots had actually been fired inside the room. One bullet had gone harmlessly through a pillow and into the mattress. The second bullet struck Jennifer in the forehead. So now, investigators had another question. If this was suicide, why was there a first shot fired into a pillow? Was it a failed attempt? A warning shot? A struggle? Nobody could explain it. 2 gunshots, 1 pillow. 0 explanations. The math is not mathing, detectives. Then investigators found one of the creepiest details in the entire case. Every label had been removed from Jennifer's clothing. Every single one. Her jacket, her pants, her shoes. Anything that could identify where the clothing came from was gone. At first, that might not sound important, but investigators quickly realized how unusual that actually is. Removing clothing labels makes identification harder. It prevents police from tracing brand distribution, country of origin, or where the items may have been purchased. And in certain circles, that detail raised immediate red flags, because this is a tactic sometimes associated with espionage. So now, investigators had a much bigger question. Who exactly was this woman? And why was someone trying so hard to erase her identity? Because people who are planning a straightforward suicide usually don't acid wash their gun's serial number and personally unsubscribe their clothing from having a country of origin. Authorities performed an autopsy, hoping they'd finally get answers. Instead, things got even murkier. Jennifer appeared to be somewhere between 20 and 30 years old. Later testing suggested she was likely born around 1971. Her dental work was unusual, though, that experts believed that she may have grown up in Germany, Switzerland, or possibly even the United States. Her DNA was eventually entered into databases. Nothing. No matches, no missing persons report, no family connections. No one ever came looking for her. It was almost as if she had never existed at all. Or someone had gone to a terrifying amount of effort to make sure she couldn't be found. And then investigators discovered something unbelievably frustrating. Police had destroyed critical evidence. The bedding was thrown away. Her clothing was discarded. Several important forensic samples were permanently lost. Jennifer herself was buried anonymously. They threw away the bedding. They threw away her clothing in an unidentified death investigation. Outstanding work. Truly a masterclass in ensuring that evidence never inconvenienced you again. Years later, investigators exhumed her body, hoping modern technology could finally provide answers. But by then, so much evidence had already been lost forever. Hard to solve a mystery when someone has apparently Mary condoned the entire crime scene. So what actually happened from inside room 2805? Officially, Norwegian authorities ruled the death a suicide, but critics challenged that conclusion immediately because the evidence just doesn't fit. No gunshot residue, no blood on the hand, an untraceable weapon, a fake identity, removed clothing labels, no personal belongings, a second guess who may never have existed, and 15 unexplained minutes where literally anyone could have walked away unnoticed. Other than all of that, though, completely straightforward. Naturally, this has led to a lot of theories. Some people believe Jennifer was murdered and the entire scene was staged to look like a suicide. Others think she may have been connected to organized crime. But the theory people kept coming back to is espionage. The Cold War had only recently ended. Oslo regularly hosted diplomatic meetings. Jennifer reportedly spoke fluent English and German. Her belongings, or lack of belongings, suggested someone was deliberately hiding her identity. Some former intelligence officials have openly speculated that she may have been an operative, maybe a courier or a spy. Honestly, all of this screams spy stuff. Maybe someone who knew something she shouldn't have. And if that theory is true, someone made sure she disappeared permanently. 30 years later, we still have no idea who Jennifer Fairgate really was. No family has ever came forward. No identity has ever been confirmed. And the woman who checked into room 2805 under a fake name remains one of Europe's most unsettling unsolved mysteries. A woman with no past, no records, no history, no explanation, only questions. And maybe the creepiest question of all, was Jennifer Fairgate ever really Jennifer Fairgate in the first place?